Hello, we're here for our second episode of new releases from the Librarian Book Club. I'm Annie with the Huntsville-Madison County Public Library and Amanda as well. And then we have Lady with the Snail on the Wall bookstore, and we're talking about things that are coming up not only at the end of November but in December, and we're in prime gift giving season, so keep in mind Snail on the Wall, virtual deliveries. Lady's going to tell you about her pop-up shop that's just opened up for the season, so just keep that in mind as we talk about some of these great titles we're excited about. And I'm going to get started. So there's some really fun stuff coming out, and as always it's hard to pick. We've got one, this is actually coming out next week, and I thought it just sounded really cool. It's called Confessions in B Flat by Donna Hill. It's set during the Civil Rights Movement. It almost sounds like a star-crossed, like Romeo and Juliet kind of deal, where they meet, and one of the characters, is sort of a Martin Luther King follower, and then the other one is more like for Malcolm X, and sort of how their ideologies come together, and it is set in Harlem. That's by Donna Hill. Next, we've got kind of a Mean Girls sort of, but grown up, The Lies She Told by Harriet Tice. That comes out December 1st, and she wrote a previous book called Blood Orange, and just kind of a woman who's, in the new in the neighborhood, starting a new job, and kind of falls in with the, it seems like the crowd that you want to be a part of, but there's just a lot of, kind of awful things happening behind the scenes there as well. Another one that sounds really fun is called The Chicken Sisters by KJ Del Antonia. And it's two families, again, kind of that Romeo and Juliet thing, as far as there's two families and they're in Kansas, and each one has their own sort of chicken shack, and they've always kind of been rivals. And the main character is married to the son, and then she becomes widowed and then becomes involved with sort of a, like a Food Network kind of competition, and she needs to call for help from her sister who's moved to Brooklyn and wants nothing to do with the family business. So I think, hilarity and some family bonding ensues. The final one I'm going to tell you about is Michel Faber, and I hope I pronounced his name right, but he's written The Crimson Petal and the White, and the book of, oh gosh, I'm blanking on. He's written a couple of other books that he's been renowned for. But this is called D, A Tale of Two Worlds. And in it, it's kind of like a fantasy where the letter D suddenly disappears everywhere from speech. And our heroine has to, and her name starts with a D, she has to kind of figure out what's going on, what's happening, and how we can get that D back. So, and I just think the cover is absolutely gorgeous. So these are my quick picks for some of the hot things coming out later this month and in December. And I will pass this on to Miss Amanda, and she's going to tell you about some very cool stuff.
All right, thank you, Annie. Those sound awesome. Okay, so here are my nonfiction picks for December. The first one is Badass Habits by Jen Sincero. This comes out on December 1st. And the subtitle is Cultivate the Awareness, Boundaries, and Daily Upgrades You Need to Make Them Stick. So Jen Sincero writes a whole series of self-help books about how you're a badass. And I read the first one, and it doesn't get too deep. So if you're looking for like a surface level personal cheerleader, or a 21-day plan on how to develop better habits, definitely give this one a try. The next one is Sometimes You Have to Lie by Leslie Brody. This one comes out on December 1st. And the subtitle is The Life and Times of Louise Fitzhugh, the author of Harriet the Spy. So I didn't know this, but apparently as a children's author and a lesbian, Louise Fitzhugh was kind of pressured to keep her personal life hidden. And so we don't really know a whole lot about her. So Leslie Brody was able to get some exclusive access to some personal documents and interviews and really learn more about her about Louise Fitzhugh's life. Leaving Memphis, she moved to Greenwich Village, and then you get a picture of like the art scene in post-war Europe. So I'm super excited to read this one and learn more about the woman behind one of my favorite childhood book characters. Okay, the next one is Happiness Becomes You by Tina Turner. This one also comes out December 1st. And the subtitle is A Guide to Changing Your Life for Good. So this one's not a memoir, but it's a book of personal wisdom. So it's rooted in the principles of Buddhism, which Tina Turner has been involved in since the 70s. And it's deeply personal and ultimately uplifting. Okay, so I cheated for the next one and picked a pair of books. So the first one is The Search for John Lennon by Leslie Ann Jones. And then the second one is The Last Days of John Lennon by James Patterson with Casey Sherman and Dave Wedge. The first one comes out on December 1st, and then the James Patterson comes out on December 7th, which is the day before the 40th anniversary of John Lennon's death. So I've been a huge fan of the Beatles ever since I could talk. And I picked these two because they seem really different. Leslie Ann Jones is a music biographer, so you're going to get more of like an intimate portrait of John Lennon's whole life, his loves, about his death as well. And then James Patterson, you know what you're going to get. It's going to be fast-paced, really high energy, interesting. He's been doing a lot of true crime in the past few years, and still with that James Patterson flavor. So both of these books mention exclusive content in their descriptions. So choose your own adventure on the style of reading you're looking for, but you'll get something new about John Lennon either way. So the last one I want to talk about is This One Wild and Precious Life by Sarah Wilson. This one comes out December 29th. And the subtitle is The Path Back to Connection in a Fractured World. I'm reading this one right now, and it is blowing my mind. I love books about living an intentional life, and this one kind of zooms out and gives you the bigger picture of how we got to this disconnected place in the first place. And it also incorporates different perspectives, so art and music and literature and science, and it's all structured around these hikes that she's taken and what she learned along the way. So I love just this idea of taking all these different perspectives and zooming out to find out why, and ultimately learning about loneliness and how to embrace the art of being alone. So those are my nonfiction choices for December. Thanks.
Wow, thanks, Amanda. These all, I want to read them all. They sound incredible. And especially the last one you mentioned, I think it just sounds like something we all need to, I think we're all expected to be and do so much, and we can't, we're not programmed that way. So awesome. Thank you. Well, and we will go on next to Lady, and she's got some awesome picks for us.
Okay, thank you. I will say what Annie mentioned, the Snail on the Wall is an independent bookstore without a store, except in December, and right now we are already set up at Roosevelt and Company downtown with a pop-up store. So those of you that are looking to give books as gifts, and those of you that just love to browse an independent bookstore, please stop by and see all of our selection. We've got a lot of books in that small loft upstairs, but so let me get to my picks. I'm going backwards just a few weeks with the first one, Waste. This released on November 17th, and it's got an Alabama connection, so I really want everyone to know about it. It's written by Catherine Coleman Flowers, who won a MacArthur Genius Grant to study sanitation in Lowndes County, Alabama. And she calls it America's dirty secret, because people living in poverty do not have the basic sanitation things that we take for granted. And it's got a foreword by Brian Stevenson, who wrote Just Mercy and runs the Equal Justice Initiative. So they're doing great work for underserved populations in Alabama. And so I just think this is an important book for everyone to pick up and take a look at. Then I will jump to some fiction, 2 books releasing on December 1st. The first one is The Opium Prince. This they're calling it a literary thriller. Because it is, there's a murder and they're trying to solve it, but it's set in Afghanistan in the 70s. And it really, the people that have read it, and I haven't yet, say that it defies genres. It is, a story that's just riveting for so many reasons, but set in Afghanistan about the opium poppy fields and who controls them and all of that. So I think it's just got a lot of cultural interest too. Then a completely different fiction book releasing on December 1st. Jane Smiley has a new book. You might know her as the author of 1,000 Acres and other big books from the past. So her new one is called Paris and Perestroika. And this is, I'm going to call it whimsical. It is about a horse who is on the loose in Paris, and he is really from his perspective, but he then meets a German short-haired pointer named Frida, and then they both befriend a human boy named Etienne, and so it's just kind of their adventures, how they roam around Paris and learn about each other. So it's just kind of different. And then before I talk about Mr. and Mrs. Christie, let me jump to Olive Bright Pigeoneer, which is kind of a charming, cozy mystery set in a British village during World War II. So those of you that like a little bit of World War II fiction. And Olive Bright is just this, spunky character who happens to be a pigeoneer, and she's working with the carrier pigeons, and she wants them to go to work for the British, Her Majesty's or His Majesty's forces. So anyway, but then there's a murder, and she helps to solve it because she's a big Agatha Christie fan. So that's just a good one that we're looking forward to. And then that segues nicely into another one releasing on December 29th, which I think is going to be a really big book for everyone. Mystery of Mrs. Christie. Marie Benedict is great at writing historical fiction about characters, especially women, like the other Einstein, the other woman in the room, which was about Hedy Lamarr. So this one looks at Agatha Christie, who disappeared mysteriously for 11 days, and that really happened, and nobody really knows what she did in those 11 days. She kind of escaped her life as a mother and wife. And so this imagines what could have happened when she did that. And that one also releases on December 29th. And just a little plug for those of you that love book clubs, and some of you might be members of the Rocket City Mom Book Club, which is a virtual book club on Facebook. And that's going to be their January, February pick. And the Snail is doing a book bundle of their first 3 picks for the year. So check them out on Facebook. If you haven't joined them, you can easily just join that group. And it's a virtual book club. It was virtual before virtual was cool.
Thank you so much, lady. And yeah, there's just so many, if you're looking to get connected through books, there's so many opportunities, like, the Rocket City Mom Book Club, and there's just no shortage of that. So these all sound wonderful, and I'm excited to read them. And I will add that all these books that we're talking about, they will be on order through the library. We'll be getting them in some form or fashion through audio, whether it's the Digital Media Zone or Hoopla. So just, if you don't see it right away, just hang in there for a week or two. We're going to get everything available. So, and then finally, so we've got a streak of 2 now. This is really fun when we're coming up with our books. Lady and I both picked this one, and this happens to be also our Librarian Book Club pick for December, and it comes out December 1st. So it's called This Time Next Year by Sophie Cousins. And I'll say, and Lady will too, just kind of why we liked it, but it's one of those sort of contemporary British sort of, I want to say, well, whimsical, I think is a good word, a romance where you've got this couple, well, this man and this woman, they were both born January 1st, 1990. But he was born just a little bit before, and he gets the cash prize, and then they meet up years later, and kind of you see how different paths their lives have taken. So it's just kind of one of those slightly magical sounding books. And Lady, what drew you to it?
Well, I think it's going to be like One Day in December, that book from a few years ago by Josie Silver, which I did curl up on the sofa with one afternoon and read the whole thing. And I think this is going to be the same thing. Like after the holiday madness dies down, this one's about New Year. So just settle in and enjoy. Take some time for yourself.
So we'll be looking forward to reading that. And thank you both so much for telling everyone about these fantastic books. I'm excited that when we film our next one, we will be talking about 2021 books. That's exciting for so many reasons, right? I think we can all get behind that. So happy holiday reading, happy holiday shopping. Go see Lady at Roosevelt and Company, and hit us up for all of us for book recommendations. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.